Man, there's not much of summer left, but I'm glad we get out to Block Island while there's still some warm days, Jeff.
Yeah, Block Island is a paradise for sure. And not our first trip here either.
No. We explored the Block Ness Monster back in episode 96 and the Palatine Light back in episode 29.
Yeah, that's right. And so it's been a while. Now, unlike the Palatine Light, this time we're here on Block Island searching for a real lighthouse.
Now, considering there's 2 lighthouses on Block Island and we're near the southern shore, I guess this is the one we're following?
Yep, and you'd be correct. We've come to Block Island to explore Southeast Lighthouse, a building they say is haunted by the ghost of Mad Maggie. Hello, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger. Welcome to episode 362 of the New England Legends podcast. We're always on the hunt for ghosts, monsters, aliens, weird history, roadside oddities, and all the other things that make New England like no other place. Most of our story leads come from you, so please contact us anytime through our website if you've got something you think we should check out.
So we'll go looking for the ghost of Mad Maggie right after this word from our sponsor.
Southeast Lighthouse on Block Island, which of course is part of Rhode Island,
right,
is a gorgeous brick building.
Yeah, no doubt.
It looks like a stately Newport mansion with a 52-foot-tall lighthouse attached to it. There's a spiral staircase leading to the top of the light, too.
It also looks like it could withstand just about any storm.
The lighthouse sits on the side of Mohegan Bluff, a cliff that drops about 200 feet down to where the Atlantic Ocean crashes into the cliff face. So it's a good spot for a lighthouse considering how high above the water we are.
The lighthouse was constructed between the years 1873 and 1875 during one of the many heydays of Block Island tourism, when this was a big resort destination. They built the lighthouse about 300 feet from the edge of the cliff. Now, the local farmers tried to tell the federal agents, hey, that's too close to the edge. They explained how they've needed to move their fences back from the cliff's edge about every 10 years because of the steady erosion of the clay bluff. But, what do local farmers know? The federal government's always smarter, right?
Right. By 1983, the lighthouse stood about 80 feet from the edge of the cliff. More than 200 feet had eroded away over the past century. If they're going to save the landmark, they need to move it. Between 1983 and 1993, locals raised funds. 3 acts of Congress were passed, and the government helped pay the $2 million it took to raise up the lighthouse and move it back another 300 feet away from the cliff to a safer place where it would survive.
If you're the government, why pay once when you can pay twice? Well done.
So basically, the whole lighthouse used to be about a football field closer to the cliff edge.
Got it.
And they say this place is haunted?
They do.
So, is the ghost in the building or floating in the air 300 feet away?
That's a fair question. Now, most people think the building is haunted, meaning the ghost must have followed. I haven't heard any reports of a ghost floating in midair, 300 feet away.
Now, we should point out that this lighthouse is located directly on Block Island.
Right.
Meaning that it's not isolated on some little rock in the ocean where you need to take a boat to get anywhere.
Yeah, no, good point. But still, duties call. It can be a lonely life, even on the mainland. So let's head back to the year 1908 and check out Southeast Light.
It's November of 1908 here on Block Island. Autumn has delivered some rough weather so far, so life here at Southeast Lighthouse has been busy. Bad weather has meant the keeper needs to keep the light on and the foghorn working.
The seas can get rough around here, and the fog can lay thick. These can be dangerous waters on their own, and then add in the heavy shipping traffic up and down the coast, New York to Boston and everything in between, and you have collisions and other problems. On good weather days, life here can get pretty dull. Often, the lighthouse keepers live here with their families. In this case, we have a husband and wife stationed.
Oh, man, she doesn't sound happy to be here.
No, not at all. Now, locals will tell you this is pretty typical with this couple. They fight a lot.
Lighthouse life isn't for everyone. It can be dull. Though they're located on the mainland, it's not like they have neighbors nearby. Most days, the couple here at the lighthouse are stuck. He has to tend to his duties. She needs to help when asked.
Again, it's not the life for everyone. Days stretch into weeks and then months. The fights between the husband and wife continue and get worse. Sometimes he can even hear her over the foghorn.
One early evening, the lighthouse keeper makes his way up the spiral staircase to tend to the light. And right behind him, his wife is following.
Keeper is fuming as his wife follows him, nagging up the stairs. They're just about at the top.
Oh,
No, he just shoved her down the stairs.
Gosh, this is awful. She's tumbling all the way down the spiral staircase.
We got to go check on her.
Oh, that doesn't look good.
No,
not at all.
No, not.
Nobody's neck should look like that.
She's not breathing.
I think she's dead.
Oh, and now her husband's in a panic. He knows he's in trouble. He races off to fetch the police and a doctor, all the while trying to think of his story.
When the lighthouse keeper reaches the police, he explains how his wife has been horribly depressed lately, how she was despondent, so she climbed to the top of the stairs and threw herself down them.
But that's not really what happened.
I know, but that's his story.
Got it.
When the police arrive at the lighthouse and see the state of the woman's body, they're not convinced this was a suicide.
It's not an ideal way to go, and the police know it too. Either way, the keeper's been relieved of his duties while the police continue their investigation.
The thing about the job of lighthouse keeper is there's no days off. If someone died here and the post is vacant, someone else needs to start immediately. Time and tide wait for no one.
Meanwhile, the lighthouse keeper is soon arrested, tried, and sent to jail for the murder of his wife.
Back at Southeast Lighthouse, strange things are happening. The new lighthouse keeper hears footsteps climbing the lighthouse stairs, but no one is there. He'd heard stories of the recent murder, so it doesn't take much of a leap to think maybe the woman's ghost still lingers.
As days and weeks pass, the new keeper hears disembodied voices. Now and then, he'll feel an unseen force push him in the shoulder, as if a person were getting ready to fight him.
One peculiar thing about this haunt is that women seem to be left alone. The spirit is focused on tormenting the men who work in the lighthouse.
With the lighthouse's haunted reputation secured, pretty soon the ghost gets a name: Mad Maggie. And that brings us back to today.
There have been a few tragedies in the waters close to Southeast Light. Back in 1932, the 2,800-ton freight ship, the Grecian, was heading south from Boston to Norfolk, Virginia, when she moved into a heavy fog bank right near the southern part of Block Island. What the Grecian didn't know was that the 4,300-ton liner called City of Chattanooga was heading north in the same fog bank. Just a short distance from the fog signal of Southeast Light, the Chattanooga smashed the hull plates of the Grecian, sending her to the bottom in only a few minutes. 4 men died in that accident.
That's life at sea, especially before GPS and radar. We should also point out that we could find no record of a murder at Southeast Light.
Wait, really? I mean, so this never happened?
Well, though we can't say for certain, a death in a lighthouse, especially one under strange circumstances, really would have made the newspapers. I mean, yeah, this version of the story appears in a lot of places, but no names are named and no specific dates. In a lighthouse, the record keeping is meticulous and important. The journals track the daily weather, anything odd that happened, and things like that.
But the haunted reputation endures.
It does.
And we've seen the photos of the 300-foot relocation of this iconic lighthouse. That was no small feat.
No, that's also true. And we've seen this many times before. There's something romantic about lighthouses. They shine through storms and darkness. When you're on rough seas, the sight of them lets you know land and hopefully safety's nearby. We often don't think of what it used to take to keep them running at all times. How isolated a few dedicated people were to ensure the light stayed lit. For some, it's a calling. Others were dragged along for a ride they didn't want to be on. It's not hard to imagine getting pushed beyond the breaking point in conditions like those.
No, it's not. And that takes us to After the Legend, where we take a deeper dive into this week's story and sometimes veer off course.
After the Legend is brought to you by our Patreon patrons. Our Patreon patrons are the engine that drives this train. Most people won't sign up, so we could use your help. They support all the costs it takes to bring you 2 stories each week, and since they take care of us, we take care of them with early ad-free access to new episodes. They get discounts on our tickets and products, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. It's just $3 per month. It helps a lot. To sign up, click on the link in our episode description or head to patreon.com/New England Legends. And to see some pictures of Southeast Light on Block Island, click on the link in our episode description or go to our website and click on episode 362.
We've done lighthouse stories before.
We
They
have.
never end well.
No, I mean,
Not always.
It's isolation is not for everyone.
Yeah.
As we've learned.
I think we've talked about this. Did you see The Lighthouse with James Patterson?
Yeah,
Patterson.
and Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. That was a creepy story.
It was shot in 4x3.
Yep.
So it's a box, not, and then black and white and no music, right?
I can't remember. I
Yeah.
only saw it once, but it was very creepy that way.
Yeah.
The smaller format and the black and white, probably no music, so it was very realistic.
You just get the sense of just how dull this life is.
It's all and maddening.
Important, right?
Yeah.
It's if you're on a ship at sea, you need to know where the land is. It's critical. You could die.
Can't get a lot of exercise.
No.
Usually, unless you're running up and down the stairs, which is great exercise. But it's not like I'm going to go for a walk outside. A lot of these are set on really small plots of land.
Right. At least this one's on the mainland.
Right,
So
exactly.
So yeah, if you had a family, they could run on the grass. You could ride your bicycle into town.
But not all of them.
No, many of them are on just a tiny little rock, and there's nowhere to go whatsoever. You are stuck there. I mean, prison, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
like this.
It is a form of prison.
Prison's more social. You're going to see
That's
people
true.
in the yard. You're going to have,
Yeah.
other inmates around at lunch and meals and stuff. But
At
like,
what point do you start seeing mermaids? And then at what point are you talking to the mermaids?
we've done stories on lighthouses that had mermaids,
right. Yeah, we
and the
have.
keeper talked to the mermaid. And we've done stories where there were murders
Yeah.
in a lighthouse, but we had names and dates
Right.
on those. This one, this ghost story shows up on a bunch of places, but what can happen is it's the same person, it's just getting copied and recopied.
Yeah.
And it sounds plausible enough.
Right.
But the thing is, I mean, even someone dying by accident in the early 1900s, that made the papers.
Yeah.
Like it just did.
Yeah. Wasn't that long ago.
No, it really wasn't. Like it would be known that even if it was a fluke accident, they'd say, "Oh, at the lighthouse, so and so was lost in a
Right.
a fall down the stairs or whatever." So we couldn't find that. But then you wonder, like, is this pulled from somewhere else and it made its way over here?
Yeah.
I don't know. But we wanted to do the story anyway.
Still
just 'cause-
folklore.
Yeah, for sure.
We never claimed that, we're spreading facts.
We don't know,
Right.
but we own it. We
Yeah,
own
yes.
it. We own it when we don't know.
Absolutely, yeah.
Or if we can put a date and a name on it, we do, and
Yeah.
we tell you that. So this is one of those cases where the story endures. But the lighthouse. I mean, this is like a beautiful building. This is just like the brick facade and the brick lighthouse. It looks like it could withstand any hurricane. It's a big building, unlike most, which is just the lighthouse tower
Right.
and like a little house where someone might live. This looks like you'd have room for the Vanderbilts in this one.
Are you into lighthouses?
They're always
Personally?
whenever I see one,
You appreciate it?
I'm like, like if you're driving up the coast or something and you see a lighthouse, aren't you? I'm always like, ooh, lighthouse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
it's like a dork, like cow in the field, right?
Right.
Like cow, lighthouse.
It's kind of an oddity because
Yeah.
you don't see it every day.
Right.
You have to drive,
Yeah.
a good distance to see one around here.
Yeah.
We were up in Maine and we went to two of them. I can't remember which ones.
Sure.
But they were wonderful experiences. And I think we spent 20 minutes to a half hour at each one.
Right.
Doing what? Just looking at this tall thing.
Just a big old light. That's
it.
And it's not even for you.
Right.
It's for everyone out there in the ocean. It's
You know what? Maine coming up I don't know when it is. I think it's the second week of September.
Yeah.
They're doing like an open house day. It's open lighthouse day or something. Where you can
Oh,
go
nice.
actually go into the lighthouse
Nice.
and go up and down. Where most of the time it's blocked off and you have to remain outside.
I've been in a few. I think they're all sort of romantic in a way.
Yeah.
Because if you've been on a long sea voyage and like you see the lighthouse or you see the light at night, you're like, oh, we made it.
Yeah.
Right. There's the beacon. And they all have signatures, which we've talked about in the past, where, two flashes or
Yeah.
long flash or whatever tells you like a good mariner would know, like, oh, that's that light. And
Right.
because the light up the coast has a different signature. So you find your way by these lights. And
We've all seen Pete's Dragon. Do you remember that scene? She was a lighthouse keeper.
Right.
And she was up at the top waiting for her sailor husband to come back.
Right.
And there was a whole song. And I mean, that's where my mind goes when you think of the romanticism
Yeah.
involved.
lonely, looking out at sea and
Yeah.
just keeping the lights lit for you. So again, today with GPS and all that other stuff, they're just not as necessary as they used to be. And they're not manned anymore. They're all automated.
Yeah.
They've been automated, most of them, since like the 60s. The U.S. Coast Guard, I believe, is in charge of all of them. Ultimately, they have jurisdiction over all of them now, on the ocean anyway. Although a few have been turned into bed and breakfasts and things like that. But the light itself is still like the jurisdiction of the Coast Guard.
Yep.
We've done many a haunted lighthouse over the years. They all seem to have some sort of story.
Yeah.
And I think it's because when you don't look at it from the outside, but try to imagine it from the inside, you're just like, oh, this is a lot like a jail cell. And it is.
Yeah.
And
So I'm starting to think that if there's no story attached, no real story, somebody made up a story for each lighthouse
Sure.
that has no story.
because it's easy to imagine.
Right.
It's easy to look at that lonely building and go, imagine being stuck in there all the time and like with a nagging wife.
Right.
Like,
Imagine if the guy threw her down the stairs and there's a couple behind listening to that story, and then they go back and say, did you hear about that story about this lighthouse?
Yeah.
Somebody fell down the stairs. What?
Yeah.
No, they were pushed. And then that's how it spreads.
Who knows?
Gossip.
Who knows? Yeah. But I also love that they spent millions of dollars moving it. When the farmers back then were like, we've been here and we can tell you, you got to be further back because this thing's just eroding.
Yeah.
That's what's
and the government's
happening.
like, that doesn't happen.
You don't know anything. We know. We've been here for almost an hour, sir.
Yeah. You're a tender of the land, but you have no idea.
I've only lived here 4 generations. What do I know? Except what I've observed and my parents and my grandparents have observed. And you're like, yeah.
That used to be the guest house.
Yeah.
About 30 yards that way.
Yeah.
See it? No.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
Just ocean.
That's right. Yeah. Imagine a house. It's gone. Literally, the cliff ate it. But yeah, that's local wisdom is to be listened to at the end of the day.
Be sure to subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcasts because it's free and you won't miss a thing. Then post a review for us and share the episode on your social media. That will help us grow and reach a wider community of legend hunters who feed us new stories.
We'd like to thank our sponsors and thank you so much to our Patreon patrons. Our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
The bizarre is closer than you think.